Now, I've invented some work for these students, which I hope you'd help me prepare before they come in. I've invented work that will have three, at least, aspects to it. Because I feel if the secondary school teachers, I'm particularly thinking of them at this point, could realise they do not have to invent dramas for every different class. That classes will pick up other people's dramas. Now, I know I've got the same class all week, and there isn't that demand. However, I want to be trying to help teachers understand this particular week. We need, first of all, in a drama, a community. Now, it needn't be a community that is a well-established one. It may be, as all theatre people know, it could be just an army unit or a family that happens to be together in a certain event. But we do need what Doris Lessing has called the substance of we feeling. Now, I would say that drama's biggest contribution, if we would allow it to work in the present climate, is really basically about the substance of we feeling. I was at a meeting of SCIPT, the Standing Conference of Young People's Theatre, last weekend. And they were lobbying about going down to this miners' meeting. And the word the leaders were using all the time was win. That is not a substance of we word. And my heart sank that here were serious theatre people who cared very much about the miners' situation in England and were prepared to go down to Brighton and lobby the TUC that day. But the words they used were not substance of we. They were all to do with winning. Now, to me, drama offers us the opportunity for the teacher to breed in children a realization that the substance of we is one of the most important matters that attention should be paid to. So drama is based upon a collaborative act, even if the collaboration takes the form of a quarrel. That the assassin in the Trudeau thing had to be guided as much by all the rest. That we together decided what was likely to be possible, and we together decided to support that person through if they were going to do something antisocial. And so I want to create, in my way, always when I'm teaching, that substance of we feeling. So certain language is out for me. I can't use words like win over them, or succumb, or submit, because those are not we words. So I'm going to introduce three different things to the children and tackle from different aspects each day. First of all, I want the children, I've written this down so that I don't forget it. I want a community that has a settled way of doing things. So settled that they haven't bothered to notice, really, what it is that makes them a community, like most of us live like. So I want to be able to raise questions like, it's interesting how we stuck together on that. I wonder what it was that made us do that. And I've only got, of course, 5 sessions with them. I must give them tasks to do, and the common task I've chosen is one that I think suits Dublin, though it may not be in the knowledge of these children, and that is dealing with tourists. People who come because there's something here that's worth seeing, which allows us to meet strangers who may not think like we do, who may not have the same attitude as we have. And so, if you like, I've said to myself, all right, we will be, and we'll have to be all men in the sense that it's a boys' class that's coming in. And that's a bit false, but never mind. We are a community who happens to have nearby a grove of very old trees. And so the science side would come in through this. We've got this grove of very old trees, and I'm using only my own knowledge. I only thought of it when I was talking last night, when I heard that today's class was the same as the other 4. I wasn't sure if today's class would be the same, you see. So we look after this grove of old trees, and a lot of people come to see it. We don't particularly think of it as having any great significance, other than it does bring in the shekels. You know, cream teas, it's made our village possible, because we've seized the opportunity. So most of the homes are open to people coming in and having tea, like some of the villages in Northumberland. For most of us, they're just old, I think they're oak trees. They've been propped up a lot anyway. Now, of course, we've got a vested interest in keeping these trees going. Now, these trees are pretty ancient, and they do need a lot of attention. So the Forestry Commission is also very interested in these trees, and so they come along regularly to inspect. There is a slight problem that we are expected to also not let visitors ruin them. I mean, we can't have people chucking balls at the branches and trying to put swings up because they're pretty decrepit. So in a way, we've got an old relative, you put it that way, that we are sustaining. For the wisdom or the shekels they bring in. So it needn't be at a very deep level at the beginning. But I always teach as if it's going to be, because I don't see any point in it not. That's the first area then. So we are, you see, serving others, but we also have an interest in serving ourselves through serving others. So it's not completely altruistic. We also guard something that we didn't make, that we've taken into guardianship, because it suits our purpose. We're not great martyrs to the cause. It's just filled a gap since farming got a bit difficult and small holdings got more tricky and so on. And it tends to be seasonal, so we have to consider what we do the rest of the year. We're going to have to take some environmental decisions, however. And that is that I'm going to suggest to the children, I'll be very open about all this. I realise they're not planning this curriculum. I'm planning this curriculum. What I'm not planning, however, is A, the level at which they can function at it. I don't know the precise kinds of information they're going to require. I'm going to be pushing for the acquisition of information and clarity and knowing where to get it. I know that they must be the arbiters in the end, because I see this as a year's work, of course. They must be the arbiters in the end of what concerns this community. Where do they see this being important for people? So I am inventing a landslide, just a very small one, because of the drought. I presume you've had the same sort of dry weather as we have had. And the roots of one of the trees have moved, and the tree has tilted sideways. And lo and behold, when we go and have a look, there's signs of some stonework that is man-made under there. So you've got an environmental problem. Do you put the tree back and say, forget it, you know, just put it back, we'll have it like it was, for goodness sake, don't let that tree die? Or do you say, well, there might be something even more interesting under there. The world's knowledge might need what's under there. So it's quite a dicky problem to have to cope with. Now, you see, you have then 4 kinds of authority in terms of knowledge to be engaged with. First of all, you've got the authority of the proven. It can be proved how old these trees are. The foresters have done this for us. Then you've got the authority of the expertise. We know how to provide for tourists. You know, time has taught us this. We know how to care for these trees in our own ways, of noticing, you know, if anything's showing any early leaf fall and so on. The good amateur who has the need to keep a watch. We've also got the authority of the law. You can't start tearing this tree up without recourse to tradition and what's been laid down for what you can do to your environment, but we've also got the authority of our opinion. So those are the 4 areas I would like to tap in this work. Now, of course, always as a teacher, I have this triad of guilt. And I feel students learning must also come to this and understand it, when it's safe for them to learn it, that it is something that does not go away. First of all, I have my personal investment in what I believe teaching's about. And that's entirely mine. I've tried to share it with you in a sort of rough way. I also have my commitment to the rationality of the courses schools offer, the knowledge that schools try to give to children. The curriculum is basically very sensible. It's just ridiculously taught, but it is very sensible. So I've got my commitment to my object interests, but I've also got the child's need interests, and frequently they clash. So it is a triad of guilt, because I'm constantly hoist on the petard every second of, do I indulge that child's need interest at this moment or push an object interest? And can I be really clean and honest in my view about, in the long run, am I really not pushing my own teaching interest, my personality interest? Now, I don't see a way round ever sorting this one out. What I see it as is a very important triad to hold in view all the time. Nobody can teach anybody how to make those decisions at that point. We all know what the teacher looks like who overrules children's need interests, and the secondary school is a monument to it. The result is we have people who are very, very ill-educated, both in living, because they spend such a long time not living in that sense, and the idiocy of introducing facts on top of each other. I was very intrigued on the day the A-level results came out. 4 girls gathered in my house and 2 boys. They were all successfully through to university. And this was a conversation in my kitchen. Adam said, Marianne, take that French book out and put it in your dustbin. Now, he'd just done an A-level French course, and he'd come out with a B. He said, I'm never going to look at French again. Now, this boy is going to be a doctor. He wants to be. And I said, there's some interesting French novels, I believe, though I don't read French. He said, are there? And he wasn't being idiotic. He was making a stand. So the French book went into the dustbin. I later got it out because I can't throw books away. However, and it probably, you know, it was lying in my house. Now, Marianne said, Mummy, you have not got that back. You know very well Adam wanted it destroying. And, of course, destroy was the right word. Marianne piled up all her maths books and gave them to her daddy and said, out with them. And they were all doing the same. You see, Marianne is going to do theology. What use of maths? Out. I am never, ever, ever going to do another maths problem unless I have to calculate my income tax, she said, and I can do that without all that. Take away that, take away that, take away that. And so it was going on. And, of course, with my interest in child need, I couldn't help but agree with them. Really. The thing is, who knows where she'd have been if she'd have had all the hours she spent on geography and maths, really following her line of concern, which would have naturally taken her into geography. Why is she going to Israel today? It's the RE that's taking her to Israel, but the geography of Israel she has studied very deeply. But she's had to keep stopping to do Africa and Canada. And as she said, Mummy, You'd have thought Idi Amin had never existed the way we're taught about Africa. And so my plea is, you see, what can I do in the 3 years, or is it 4 your teachers are trained? What can I do constantly through the time to help them equate and know the decision they take, and it's second by second between what I want to push, your need I can see as far as you're prepared to show it to me, and the object interest that I am paid to do something about. Now, it seems to me one of the keys to assist this is this thing of very rigorous drama work. Very rigorous. I stress the rigour. Imagine the rigour that made a 9-year-old say to me, Mrs. Heathcote, we can't leave all these past experiments on the windowsills through the weekend. This is a primary school. And I'm saying, oh, can we not? Mrs. Heathcote, if anybody breaks a window, all those germs, if there's anybody doing any vandalism this weekend, all our germs are breeding there. Now, have you ever heard a 9-year-old come and be bothered over what happened over the weekend much, apart from hamsters and this, that and the other? And they wouldn't settle till I went to see the school's kitchen and said, could you put all these experiments in the fridge? And of course she was outraged. You cannot have all these germs in my fridge, she said. So the kids turned to me naturally and said, well, you put them in yours, Mrs. Heathcote. So I ended up, you know, with 39 little trays of agar and whatnot, growing germs in my fridge, in order that nobody would be damaged, because for a week they had been working in the laboratory of Louis Pasteur, doing the classic experiments under the guidance of Louis Pasteur, half in French. Now they're only 9. It's their introduction to French, and it's their introduction to the science of the secondary school. Now all we did was make a context. And that is what I'm talking about. So now we're going to make the context just to get the class begun. And what I thought we would do, if you don't mind, is I want the children to have a puzzle when they come in. You see, one of the most important things in getting people to work in drama is that something deflects their attention from themselves, which I find 99.9% teachers don't understand at all when they leave college in England. Drama, teachers think, is making the child focus on the self. Actors don't do that. Actors focus upon the play which will become. And they have given permission to be stared at. Children have not given permission to be stared at, and there is no play to become. What there is a group endeavour in which the concerns of people become paramount, and all the knowledge that backs those concerns. So what I want the children to do is create a village that teaches me what for them is a community. So what I'd like us to do is just make in coloured papers little becks and a river and some roads. Doesn't matter what they look like, as long as the children can recognise that must be a bit of a road. Some houses, some of them may be slate roofed, some of them may be modern with red roofs. I don't know. What's the main building like these days, the new stuff? Is it tiles? Coloured, pinkish, greenish, that sort of thing?
Some red, some blue, some green, some brown.
Right. So we need a bit of new development, not too much, and we need some old established. Are they mainly slate? Right, and maybe a bit of stone here and there. We need a couple of churches. We need a few modern buildings that could be factories. This is an aerial view, so we only need, you know, just a sense of that could be. We might have a little side view of it as well, you know, like a child's drawing a bit, so they can see, oh, that could be a factory. We need a bit of outlying farming, and so on. And I propose that when the children come in, we hand them all this and say, do you think you could create a village map for us from these. Now we also need the old trees. And I suggest for these we take a darkish paper and we just simply, you know, cut out circles but draw branches. So you're looking down on an oak wood, not many, you know, just about a dozen. Now, so what I'm going to suggest you do, which is just how I'd suggest with the children, is you've got paper, you've got scissors, set about creating, you know, you might say, well, I'll do the churches, or I'll do the houses, or I'll do the factories. Just volunteer for something. We'll have roads and rivers and pathways, and, of course, this sacred grove. I think we probably would need some sort of village square, a village green place, and a bit of a parking area, but the children will sort the parking out, don't worry. Some sort of sense of that's the middle of the village. Can you do that? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit back. There's coloured papers there. We need a bit of woodland and so on. And I'm suggesting you just sit down and cut paper up and we get it ready. And then when they come in at 11, which is in another 25 minutes...
Why can't you scale it?
Oh, I don't think you need worry over that. The final village size will be that double sheet. It's a double bed sheet. OK, let's take 10 minutes and have it ready, then we'll go and have a quick coffee before the children come in. I do apologise that I'm having my cup of tea and you haven't got one, but I have been working under these lights for a very long time and it has got rather hot, so they thought I deserved a cup of tea, you see. Now, what have they told you about today and all the rest of the week? It's always useful to know, you know. Oh, really? That's nice of them. Oh, yes, yes. Do what? We were... And they told you you'd be coming each day, or I'll be coming to you the rest of the week, won't I, into your school? I'm not sure why they asked you to come up this first day to here, because the cameras will be there down in the school as well. Now, one of the things that this is about then, as far as I understand, is that it's very difficult for teachers to ever watch other teachers. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they're usually busy teaching themselves and it's quite hard for them to get some time to go and see other people. So that's why I'm wearing this microphone, which is a radio microphone, a very expensive one, so that it picks up what we say and why the cameras are here and why you have some teachers from the college who are going to be around. Now, tomorrow and the day after, there'll be teachers from schools coming as well to your school hall. But it's all about, can we sort of make a way for teachers to watch somebody teaching? And I don't mind being watched, because sometimes it's not very nice being watched, is it? I mean, what's going to happen if I make some terrible mistakes, you know? Which, of course, all teachers can do. And you might feel you make some mistakes. Well, it doesn't matter, because that's the real world of school, isn't it? Yes. Everybody sorts out what they know. Now, of course, when they wrote to me in England, they said, can you plan a drama that could go on a bit? Yes. You see, now, I've planned a drama that I reckon you could go on with for a year if you were interested, because you'd make it into what you want it to be. So I thought, now what can I plan a drama about that can start quite quickly but end up, who knows what might happen. So I thought, well, what I'll start with is a kind of a puzzle. But before I go on to this puzzle, could you tell me, if you had been planning the starting of a drama, I've only planned the start, you know, the rest is going to be what we do, decide ourselves. If you could tell me, if you could have whispered to me in Newcastle-on-Tyne, oh, Mrs. Heathcote, do plan a drama about, what would you have liked the dramas to be about? Is anybody quick at writing on the blackboard?
Yes.
Are you? Come on, quick. You write these down. I'm too lazy, you see, but I'm left-handed and it takes longer. Now, what would you have told me to plan the drama about? What do you think? Some time travel. Just jot that down, would you mind? Time travel. Anybody else would have asked me to...
Adventure.
Some sort of adventure. This is really helpful to me.
Funny kind of thing.
A kind of funny. You mean funny to happen to people?
Yeah, funny things.
Laughing
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, not strange funny.
No,
Laughing
laughing.
funny. Laughing funny. I can't think at the moment of a laughing funny thing, but I bet you could.
Yeah, person turn into
Yeah, sure, I did it.
I
A person turn into...
some animal or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It might be funny for everybody else. Yes. What would you have told me to plan about? A strange mystery. You are quick at writing on the blackboard. Any others?
Space travel.
Some space travel, which is quite different from time travel. Somebody at the back?
Murder mystery.
A murder mystery.
Poison.
A poisoning thing.
Not poison.
Frightening.
Frightening, yes. Excuse me, I don't have a Dublin accent. So always correct me if I don't hear you right, won't you? Mm. There was the murder one and a frightening, what did you say, a frightening something?
No, poison.
A fighting, sorry. Some fighting problem.
Yeah.
Yes, fighting problem, I think. You can move the board up if it gets difficult to write. You know, it just swivels upwards if you push. Push on those steel bits. That's right, great. A fighting problem. Push it a bit harder and it'll probably stay. Yes, good. Now, were there any other suggestions? It was a fighting problem of some sort, was it?
Yeah, just poison.
Just fighting. But you'd have to fight about something, wouldn't you?
About a man who was staying with a girlfriend of another man.
Ah, do you mean a sort of family quarrel of some sort? Yeah. You better put fighting family matters. Because that... Well, did you mean that or not?
No.
Oh, you can put fighting family matters and... Well, what else did you mean?
Like, yeah. Scraps.
A scrap?
Street fight. A street fight.
A street fight.
Yeah.
Sounds better.
Well, it's different.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't want the whole street to join in a family fight, would they? It would get a bit out of hand. Right. Now, I think you should be careful about that list because don't forget it. Do you think it would be possible for you to make a note of it? The reason being that in the mystery we begin from, you may find as time goes on you're interested to look into matters like this. Because matters like that could come to any community, couldn't they? I mean, who knows when a spaceship could just land? I mean, it did with E.T. Has E.T. hit Dublin?
No.
Have you not seen E.T.?
Yes.
Have you seen it on TV or at the theatre, the cinema?
Yeah.
I saw it in America. I was one of the first. I felt very proud to have seen E.T.
I saw it in America.
Did you?
Well, I didn't see the same, but when you see films over in America, they're always the first show.
Yeah.
If they were made
I saw
there.
the third show, I think.
Like, there's a 13th part of V coming in October.
Really? Is there?
Yeah. They showed
There's
it.
a lot of films I haven't
Martin
seen
had,
that you'll have seen.
They were showing it on TV how they were going to make it a big part.
See?
Yeah.
Right. You still got your hand up. Would you have something else to say?
Yeah, well,
No?
The tripods next Saturday. It's about
These are all new to me.
it's about spaceship landing.
In fact, I've just realised I haven't seen a film since I saw E.T. That's a long time ago, isn't it? I think probably not, because I sort of introduced that, and those are yours. So you just might find that the community needs something happen. Okay, that's a big help to me. So if you could have whispered to me how to start all those kinds of dramas. The only one I've got so far is, I suppose, the adventure thing is where I've started from. Now, are you used to doing dramas?
Yes.
Well, we write essays.
You write essays about dramas, do you?
Well, no, not exactly, but like we do essays about time travel and then adventure.
Yeah, you're used to thinking about dramatic things. Good. That's helpful. Do you do dramas yourself?
Yes.
Do you? Tell me some of the ones you've done. You don't need to put your hands up, do you? If there's a silence, somebody can fill it.
Well,
we do dramas for anything we want, like bank robbery, fights. Like,
yeah.
Like Stone Age people, like one of them found a watch and they think they want to do with it. The Stone Age person finds something like that.
Yes. If they found a watch, they'd be as curious as if we found a Stone Age tool.
Their first thing would be, could they eat it?
Yeah. Or could they?
And anyway, in the Irish school, School Katrina, Mr. Shanahan and Mr. O'Donoghue, I went and I got a couple of boys, 5 boys up, and we invented this drama in Irish.
Ah, yes, so you've got 2 languages, haven't you?
We used to do.
So you could do. Are the dramas in Irish different in their content? They're just the same.
Just
the
the language
same.
is different.
It's just the words you use, yes. But the actual rest of it, you can do an Irish drama about battles just as much as you could do an English drama about battles. Right. So the language of Ireland, the Irish language, has just as many words for the same kinds of things as English has.
Well, sometimes
It can deal with the same affairs in your head,
if there's different
though.
tenses, there's different words in Irish.
Yes, but it deals with the same things as happens inside people and what they think about. Good. Is there anybody here who deep in their heart, and I can't see you all, but I'm assuming you can see me okay, who really secretly hates drama? You do. It's not secret anymore. No, but you're not too keen. Yes. A lot of people are not too keen secretly, you know. Now, I don't know why people get not very keen, but you wouldn't find any subject everybody liked, would you?
No.
Like if I say, well, those of you who really enjoy mathematics, put your hand up. Sometimes, depends on the question. Depends on what kind, yes. So really,
If it's just teacher gives lots of sums and we have to write them down.
yes, it sort of gets a bit, yes,
We
yes,
don't
yes.
get. She doesn't. It's not teaching us
Yes.
much. We're just writing down.
I see. So it gets, you enjoy it better if it's harder to do.
Yeah.
Really? Yes. Yes. Yes.
Mine is more alert.
Oh, well, that's good, because a lot of people only like things if they're easy.
Yeah.
So, in fact, in our drama, that most of the people here would find they could go along with it. A bit, you know,
Yeah.
some of it more than others. The other thing I feel I should ask you, and it's a serious question. Well, all my questions are serious, because I'm trying to get to know you a bit quite quickly. What do you think drama is about? You know, that's about what you learn from it. That interests me very much.
It can be mind drama. It's about acting out a thing without any props. Sometimes
Well,
drama can.
it's another way of communicating to someone instead of just talking to them, telling them about something that happened. You can sketch it out.
You don't very often see funny drama because they're mostly serious and there's a series on television, drama, like it's not funny, but it's good.
Yeah, it's very hard to be funny for other people, isn't it? It's ever so hard. That may be why there's more serious ones, you know.
Television announcers say that dramas like love stories on television and they're adventure as well. They're everything the same. Dramas.
People are always asking me what good it is to do it, you see.
It helps other people to cheer them up when they're bored.
Somebody,
They
yeah.
might be bored, you know, with nothing to do.
Yeah.
Telly's the only
That's
thing
if
they
you're
have.
watching it.
Yeah, telly's the only thing they have.
Yeah.
Like,
But if you're making it, like we're going to be making ours, aren't we? We're going to make it as we go.
Somebody's imagination, because you can think more about, you can, like, say if you've never seen a drama in your life or an adventure or anything like that, but it don't really, your mind isn't really that open. You can't really think of so many stories and things like that. But if you watch stories, they give you a few ideas.
Like if I didn't watch drama on the television, I wouldn't be able to write my essays because I wouldn't have an idea.
yeah.
Would you not?
No,
Because
I
they tell you-
teacher's best essays from Doctor Who.
Yes. Yes, you sort of,
like the age
yeah.
will give you-
Somebody once said, I don't remember who, but it was once said when I was quite young, that drama sort of put a lot of people inside you that you didn't have maybe before. you know.
Yeah.
Give it different feel.
But then I would have thought stories would have done that as well. What were you going to say?
Well, I don't really think television would do it. I just use the imagination.
Yeah.
Well, you'd never have heard of time travel if it wasn't for television. Or books, or and all that.
Yeah, or books.
Yeah.
Some people might pick it up from books.
Or you might get it from the radio if they're listening to something.
Yeah, there's a lot of
They do say fairy stories used to do it, you know.
Oh, yeah, first stuff like that.
But there's a lot of very strange goings on in those stories, isn't there? What were you going to say?
The men who started up adventure stories, they didn't see television that much. How did they think of that? By using their imagination, so I don't think telling helps you with their imagination.
They probably read
They got their own imagination because they didn't know about adventure until they started trying it out by using their imagination.
And the man who invented the adventure got it off the television and got it off.
Yeah, where did they get theirs from?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do all the television writers watch television? You know, do all the BBC ones watch ITV to get ideas for BBC? Who knows? Yeah.
Was this man, he wrote about test tube babies, and it was some of the 19th century or something, and he wrote all about test tube babies, and he was way before his time, and this was shown on television, Tomorrow's World. You know, he was way before his time, so I suppose he must have
Yeah, well,
just-
they do say there's nothing left to invent, that most of it's been thought of, you know, and we get a chance to put it into practice.
creating like the characters that give you feelings. If Murdoch took B.A.'s place and B.A. was Murdoch, he'd say Murdoch was great and B.A. was the stupid
Who's
one.
Murdoch?
He's a madman.
This is from TV, isn't it? You see, I never see anything.
If George, what they call Hannibal, if took Face's place, I'd say Face is much better because depends. I like them all, but some people get better parts.
What bothers me about television, if I watch it, I sort of watch it on Christmas Day sometimes, you know, that's about it. But what bothers me is it seems to go so fast,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and it's gone, and I think, well, that's a bit fast. I tend to think I can handle it better if I'm reading about it.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway.
It's longer. Yeah.
You can go at your own speed and sort of find your own pictures.
Better than the film.
Yes.
There's more to offer.
Yes. Do you ever read the book after the film or the film before the book?
I read the book
Or
before
the
the
book
film
before the film?
to see if there's any difference.
Yeah, because there's a whole new kind of literature now, isn't there? The book that's made after the movie.
It took me a week to read
Yeah.
the book and it takes you an hour and a half to see the film.
Yes, yes, and you wonder, in fact, what you're doing when you're reading.
When
It's
you're seeing
different.
the film, you look at all the ends. Our teacher wrote the book Charlotte's Web, and
Oh, yes,
I
yes,
saw
I
it
know
on
Charlotte's
television,
Web.
and it's much better in the book.
Is it?
Yeah, you can.
For the reading in your mind.
You can read it in your mind. Just in the film, it's all characters.
Yeah.
I'd rather the books than the film.
I have a feeling we should probably terminate this discussion now and get into the action. Shall we hear these two last remarks and then...
There's one thing that I don't like about films. They start in the middle and they don't end here.
Yeah.
There's no ending. Oh, yeah.
Is there any comfortable
they're
feeling that
great.
you know what's going on though? I mean, is that an ending?
Now, when I turn on the telly, when the film sort of starts in the middle.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end. It just
Well, they
cuts
do
short.
say, they really do say, and I think I'm believing this, that you can never find the beginning of anything in a drama. You can only pick up the people at a point where they're going into the problem.
Yeah.
And you leave it at the point they come out of it a bit.
Like the breaks,
You know.
when the breaks come, like you're
The
watching,
breaks.
it's just really great. And when the best bit comes up, there's a break, and you miss the best because the film is still running while the break is on.
Really?
Because they're
That's
taking.
like cheating.
Yeah, it
that.
is. You miss the best parts, and then when the break's over, it's on to
You
another.
want to say to be
bit.
continued when something is really
Are you
happening.
sure
Yeah,
they
and
don't
they
just
don't
stop the film?
They don't stop it because you miss the great
They
bit.
do stop it.
They don't stop the film all the time because when I was watching the 80s, they're just great thing. A car was just going to go off the cliff and it stops the film when the car was
Then
half
they just
off.
show what happens.
And then it
Oh.
stopped.
And
then
it's
when I
not
came
just a
back,
cut in the making of the film.
then when the break was over,
And you miss
You're-
when the break was over, it just showed the ambulance. It just showed the ambulance pulling the people out, not falling down.
You've just borne out a theory I've heard about people your age watching TV. Now, we did say this would be the last last remark, didn't we? And I shouldn't be butting in here. But somebody told me that people who watch TV a lot get really clever at noticing what's going on the screen. Like you said, it stopped when the car was just about to go over the cliff, and when it started again, it was halfway down. That's called visual literacy. Did you know you were visual literates?
No.
You are visual literates.
They don't show the car crash.
Yeah, they show the person in the hospital.
Well, that may be the way they think you'd like it, that you don't have to go in the ambulance all the way to the hospital. You know if there's been a crash.
That bit out, but I prefer if they'd show us the crash.
Yeah, you'd be there a long time,
It
man.
stops, it's just halfway off the cliff like
Yes,
that.
it's a bit of a shame, yeah.
yeah.
Maybe they do it so that you see the rest in your mind. Now, this gentleman's been waiting patiently with his hand up.
Well, I'm reading a book at the moment, and it's there's one story in it about the Wright brothers, and I know the story well. And I read the book, and I thought it'd be stupid because I know the story. And when you read it, it's a much better description.
The
It
detail.
tells you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
When you know the story, it's
Yes.
not like that at all.
Yeah, the story about the Wright brothers really is. They wanted to invent a plane, and they did, didn't they? But the detail is how it felt and how many times they tried and if the weather was right for the tests and so on, wasn't it? Because something must have kept those brothers going. I've had the privilege of teaching where they flew on the east coast of the States, you know. I mean, it was North Carolina, wasn't it, where they flew?
You can say that for every invention, though. You can say that for the steam train, the car.
Yes, yes. The story's just what you think of after that sorts it out. But it's always different when it's happening. Now, shall we have these two as our last remarks, or have we had enough? How do you two feel?
Well, I think that in a film, when it starts in the middle, you kind of pick up the story. Sometimes in the story you get the prologue, something like that. That tells you exactly what's happening, and that just gets you starting into the story. Then when you start to read it, you know what's happening.
Well, in our play, our drama, you're going to have to take a very important decision about the moment we pick up these people's lives and start not thinking about them but living like them, you know. And we're going to have to face that same decision. Now listen, this is real. You bring up so many important things. Are some of you really worn out with this talking?
No.
With the heat of the light? Some people keep up with talk and others just have a quiet sleep, you know, and only you know whether you do. What dare you show to people is always a problem. Because you get people writing in saying it was disgusting when you showed us that, whatever. So in our drama we're going to have to do the same. What can we show as a public thing? And what do we have to say? No, we won't show that. We'll make them understand it, but we won't show it to them. I mean, one of us may have a bad accident. And how much are you going to show in the drama?
They're going to show a cover over the head and
Well,
nothing else.
that's right. You may decide that. Now, I'm going to stand up as a clue to the fact we're going to begin. Shall we? We've begun because we've been talking, but now we've got to begin the action. Can you be clearing your chairs away? Because I need to put something in the middle of the floor. So we'll stow the chairs right out of the way because I don't think we'll need them again. Shall we just gather here?
Sit down.
No, I don't think we'll need to sit down. We've got plenty to do. Why? You can see later. I hope they'll show you your own TV. Now, you realise that once we start getting on with this, we can't really be bothering over the camera. I think it's rather important that for the teachers in Ireland who will see this work,
Not to look at the camera.
well, it would be stupid, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because then they'll stick.
Now, is there anybody feels they are going to be so tempted they're going to ruin this teaching film? Yeah. Well, what can we do to help you not do that?
Hide the camera.
Well, we can't hide the camera. It's a tool in the job.
Yeah, but just ignore it. Pretend it's
But
not there.
he says he doesn't think he can manage that. Pardon?
No, it's just pretend it's not
Sure,
dirty.
Tony, you'll be okay. You just get involved in what you're doing and you
Think
won't
that
get
there's
involved.
Well, the thing is that if teachers are going to be watching people staring at the camera the whole time, obviously you realise the film can't be used. It's as simple as that.
Television real.
Can you stand in a ring so that we've got all the space in the middle?
Yeah, right.
Tony, just join in.
I think it's going to need to be bigger than that. I think you need to make it a lot bigger. Now, you might think I've been having a bit of a chat, but I'm going to ask you a very serious question. I've been finding things out about you as a class, so I obviously know which people have opinions and which prefer to stay quiet. And I got a notion of the sorts of ideas you have. Now, what have you learned about me as a teacher so far?
Good.
Well, you need to qualify that a bit more.
I didn't know you were a teacher.
Oh, well, that is good. That's good, maybe. Well, I am a teacher and I have certain rules. And the rules I make for myself, I expect everybody else to use. Now, the most important rule is that when I have to, I pay a lot of attention to the job I'm doing. So I'm assuming you can do the same.
You give very good ask very good questions.
Yes, I'm interested in questions, and I'm interested in the sorts of questions you'll be asking.
Right.
You're very open-minded.
Yes, up to a point. I've been pretty open-minded for now, yes.
You take everything in.
I take everything in, and what's more, I tend to throw it back at you a bit later. So you better watch it. I have a memory that is total recall about what's been happening, you know.
I'm interested in other people's opinions.
I am. I'm very interested, and I'm very interested in you as a class. But I'm more interested in quality work, and that was what lay behind my question. How are you with cameras? Because it's not quality work if everybody's going to be staring at the camera, you see. Now we come to the next quality work. Now, when you make a drama, everything that's put into it sticks in it. So if there's invention that becomes ridiculous, I'll make you live with it. I'm warning you. I feel I should warn you.
You mean if we make group?
A good drama is always reasonable. What happens inside people takes it forward, but a good drama is reasonable. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is make a reasonable village for us to live in. So we're going to make an aerial map. Now, can you spread that sheet out so that we can all reach it, you know? Now, that's going to be the size of our aerial map. And our drama is going to be about the people that live in this place. Now, put it on the floor.
On the floor.
One of the first things we have to decide is how many hills and valleys and rivers and forests and so on, we're going to have. Because if we have a lot of hills, it means that the people who live there, which is going to be us, know about going up hills and down hills. And it's going to be hard bike country. If we don't want many hills, then it's going to be hard to see things a long way off because you won't be able to get very high to see further, you see. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take some newspapers and we can scrumple them up.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll put under the sheet the contours that people know about who live here. Now, I know that you're all good at, well, most of you seem good at having opinions, but I don't know what you like in cooperating. Now, drama's about cooperating because we're doing it together. So, can we agree we'll get our hills and valleys in first, right?
Yeah. Yes. 1 to 2 people.
You don't have to use all the newspaper. People, can I just say something? Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Listen. Now, we're going to need... Listen. I don't want to spend my time shouting at you, so just listen. Listen. I don't want to spend my time shouting. When I have something I'd like to say, I shall do that. And I shall expect you to notice. If you've got something to say, you do the same. Now, look at it now. No land, they say, is ever absolutely dead level. The land is older than the people, unless the people have changed the land. So now, that's an interesting landscape. You've got something to say.
This can be the village here. It's the most flattest village. We're making a sign here.
Now, listen, don't stretch the edges of the sheet, because each time you do that, you stop the land falling in to the contours. So if you come off the sheet and let it find its natural falling. Now, what you're going through at this moment is everybody's having a bash at putting in something that they like the notion of doing. Eventually, you're going to have to decide what has to stay, and we agree on it. Now, I use the word reasonable. In a drama, everything has to be reasonable for people so the adventure can happen. So whatever this land looks like will create the sorts of adventures that become possible. You know very well that if those hills are high, it's quite possible for people to be lost. So out of reasonable hills, you get some very intriguing adventures. Now, not only may people be lost, some people may decide to come and hide things in mountains like that, you see. So all the time you keep saying, now, is that reasonable for people to have decided we'll all live there? A long, long time ago, they said, this would be a good place. Why don't we settle here? So that's what we're looking for. Now, you go on till you think you've got it reasonable and useful. And I'll just sit back and you tell me when it's reasonable. Stand up when you think it's reasonable. Oh, that's quick. Right. Some people are still not sure. Right. Those of us who think it's reasonable, let's take a step back so that we can all see all of it. That's all right. There's not hills everywhere. Can you just tuck that newspaper under there and then we don't see it? That's fine. Now, do you want to use those bits or put them away, those two there?
Put them in the corner.
All right. Well, whoever they're nearest, just fit them in where you think they'd be reasonable in terms of the way hills and valleys are. Now, one of our problems is going to be, we've started our drama today in this studio, but when we come down to your school hall tomorrow, we'll have to be able to do that again. Do you think you can get a sense of remembering the bit you're standing by?
Yeah.
Well, it's easier said than done. We know that we've got a sort of main valley, which is roughly boat-shaped, isn't it? A bit boat-shaped. Then we've got a subsidiary one that's much higher, that's roughly boat-shaped. And we've got one or two. We've got quite a big one there that seems to drop down to a plain. And we seem to have a couple of flat places coming up over there, but we can't see beyond that. Now, do you think we can remember this?
Yeah. Would you remember?
I said to the teachers who are sitting around who work in the college here, will you make me some places that there might be in villages, like roads and so on? So they very kindly did. And they've made a lot of things. Now, some of these things you might like to use, others you might not like to use, you know. Always we say, is that reasonable? Now, it's a modern place that's been here a long time, like a lot of places in Ireland. I mean, Dublin's been around a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah. So is Ireland.
And Ireland's been around a long time. Yes, that's right. Yes, yes. Now, there's only one thing that I'm going to insist you have. And I'm going to keep hold of this because it's got to be fitted in. I'm going to tell you what it is now so you can keep your mind just a bit occupied with it. There is going to be, I've only had time to make 4, but we might need more. 4 of the oldest trees still left in existence in Ireland. Now, the way I've cut them, I've tried to make them look like they're really terribly old. I haven't put any leaves on them, though they will have leaves. But it's coming on to autumn, so that's just to warn you that one of the most important things in this community is going to be this old, ancient grove of trees. Have you got any special old trees in Ireland that you've heard of? That people keep propping up and going to see?
Oak.
Are they oak ones? Do you know where they are? Anywhere?
The red forest. Those ones.
Is there a special forest?
Yes, there's
That's very
they're
old.
big, tall trees.
There's a tree near where I live that's on the way to Scotland. And, you know, it's the oldest oak of an ancient forest, and there's no other trees left, just that one. So when you look at it, you think, gosh, this is what happened to the rest? Oh, it's 1,000 years old, they reckon.
1, 2, 3.
You know, it goes way, way back to people like Robert the Bruce. You know. Right, well, the things are here. It's up to you. You don't have to use everything. You don't put these in till last. And we have to be able to say, well, it's reasonable. Yes, it's reasonable. Anything that's too big, cut it down. I don't know. I didn't make it.
Find somebody who has a house that needs a roof then if you have to do it.
I just want to live in I want to live in that. I'm in the attic and I'm painting on
Can you hear? Thank you, that was quite a good test. Now look, it's quite obvious that people have made things and they're pretty big. So if they're too big, you have to cut them down. If they are not what you want, then you don't put them in. We are not little children. You don't have to use everything. We are discriminating people who are breeding a community. And of course the reasonable thing is you have to say, do railways go uphill, and if so, when? Can water run uphill, and if so, when? Where would there be water naturally staying here? So don't you decorate this, you're going to have to live with it. And the question is that a reasonable place for anybody to build a house? Or a church? Or a cemetery? And if it isn't reasonable, throw it out. Do they do castles on top of hills? If it's reasonable, people always do what they think is reasonable. And if it's not reasonable, they don't do it. Usually. In the long run, people, can I just say something else? I'm sorry to keep stopping you. It's just because, you know, we're just getting going. Have you ever visited a place that's just been newly built and looked at the way they put the paths and then noticed that people don't use the paths, they go across the grass because it's more reasonable to go that way than the way the architect put the paths. Have you ever been in a place like that where you've noticed? There's thousands of places where I live where architects have put paths and nobody goes on them because it's more reasonable for the human soul to want to go that way over. So they go across the grass until there's a path there, you know, because people are reasonable. Nobody walks further than they need except when they just want to go for a walk. So why is there a railway line and why is it reasonable to have one? You'll have to work out.
It's a bit of pathways there so they won't get attacked.
Well, that seems reasonable. Now, is it reasonable for a castle to have a great big green gate on the end of itself? And if it is, then you can, and if it isn't, you can't. Well, I know where I go. Well, that's okay. Gentlemen, you have 5 minutes to complete this map. Excuse me saying ladies and gentlemen, because I'm used to teaching mixed classes. Well, we'll find out later on what it's for, if it's reasonable for it to be there. It's not your own land. It's not your own, it's ours. Well, we'll have to decide if it's reasonable. Because in a drama you can't just have your own idea, you've got to share them out. Oh, well, that'll be our map. That's all. Right, you can have a map of your own town, can't you? I mean, I wouldn't expect you to turn into little people like that. 2 minutes.
2 minutes, quick.
1 minute. Let's put our hands up. Now, can you just sit back a metre? Do you do metres or yards in Dublin? Metres. Sit back a metre. Because we've got to have a long distance view. Sit back a metre. A full metre. Now, in a drama, in order for things to get a bit out of hand and interesting and unusual, they've got to have laws. And I've already told you one law, and the first law is everything starts reasonable. So we're going to question this village for reasonableness. Now, are you the sort of people who have to have your idea whether anybody else likes it or not?
No. No.
Right. So most of you think we can get an agreement together?
Yeah.
Right. The first thing I'm going to say then, when you look at the way the earth is, that's the green and the newspaper only. Do you believe it is the reasonable thing for the road to come in through the narrow gap there and go along the flat part and then make a big right angle bend and another big right angle bend according to the contour? Thinking of the early people who probably rode their horses through and pulled their carts or walked, does it seem reasonable for a road to be like that?
No.
Why not?
Because it's too hard for the horse and cart to turn.
It's too hard.
Well, you've chosen the flattest land.
You're supposed to use flat land.
Well, there's a couple of
Go over the mountains with carts, did you say? Well, it does a little bit go over a roof. We can test that for reasonableness after. Now, are we agreed that the road is reasonable?
No.
What do you find that's so unreasonable about it? Just let's listen and see what he finds unreasonable.
Too much of it, and they're putting it all over.
Country place.
Well, I can only see one.
Wouldn't be like that.
Just a minute. Listen. You've proved to me at the beginning that you're good at talking. Now I'm saying, can you prove you're good at listening? Because we'll never get our drama done if we can only talk and not hear. Now, I've said to myself, I can't make the road because somebody else has made it. So can I say to myself, if I were walking through that place a long time ago, before there were any railways, you know, before there were white lines in the middle of the road, would that be a natural place for people to come on their way to somewhere else? And I find myself thinking, well, they've saved me going up and down a lot of hills. I found my way through. The only probably other reasonable thing I might find is the road might fork here and come out on this flat bit as well as that flat bit. And I find that reasonably reasonable. But if there's any very strong feeling against it, then we ought to change it.
In a country place, I was down in Kerry.
Listen, there's somebody talking.
There's a really country place. They don't have all main roads like this. They don't.
Do they not? Just a minute. What do they have?
They just have little tiny little lanes. They don't have train tracks all through the country near the middle.
Most of it they don't. Most of it they have to have.
Well, let's ask another question. I'm quite prepared to have the roads made smaller. I mean, if that's how you feel. Do we think these roads look a bit too motorway-y?
They're only small roads. If they're motorways, they'd be big, huge
Look at the
things.
size of the house stand.
Ah, yes, just the way it's cool. It's only a little village chain. The train is
Well,
trains.
most people,
There has to be
listen,
trains going to the village.
most
you know.
people do rely on their feelings. If you think that road is too straight and too wide, then tomorrow we can make it narrower, thinner and more windy. Now, what do you think's reasonable? Now, just think for yourself. Don't say anything to anybody else. Now, because I grew up in a village, the road didn't tend to be so straight. So I find that a little bit sort of straighter than usual, because it would have gone round trees originally. But, now, what do you think? Does it feel a bit too big, or should it be smaller? We're just talking about the roads. Or does it feel just right?
Maybe just a little bit.
A little bit too big, is it, or a little bit too small? What do you... A little bit too big. Now, how many of you have that same feeling? It's just a little bit too big. Okay.
Road.
Right, now, is there any person here, and I don't know how you fixed for time today, is there any person here who would take on themselves the responsibility for making the roads more small and, you know? His hand was up first. Are you prepared to take that responsibility? Okay, is that all right if he finds 5 minutes?
Can I
to
take
that?
responsibility for railways?
Well, let's hear what people want done to them. Now, how does the railway feel? Now, the first reasonable question, listen, is why did the railway come here in the first place, and why does it stop there? We can invent, it's gone under a tunnel.
In two places there. And there's going to be a tunnel there.
I couldn't see it now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, come on.
Yeah.
There's the main
Well,
road
now,
into the
just a
village.
minute.
There's the main road into the village. There's a level crossing there. And it goes right around there and into the village
yeah.
there. This is the train only pass through. It's only a road.
So we're saying it's reasonable for the railway to pass the village
It's only a halt.
and go on somewhere else.
There's no train.
It's not coming to a mine
It's
or
only a
anything.
halt anyway.
No, right, it's no train station, just a halt. So it's reasonable to suppose that people sometimes get on a train in this village.
There's an industry there, like there's factories there, so the
So that's points there for goods train. They could get the train, be quicker by coming by horse or whatever, coming up, going up into the train, going up by the train, and like there's
to stop there, pint stop.
So it's reasonable for the
goods trains
factory as
pull
well.
in there, goods trains can pull in and out after loads.
So are we saying the railway is reasonable?
Yeah, say
It
something.
passes us by, yeah, just hang on, I just want to try and sum up what people are saying. Passes us by, but there's a line from the factory to the railway,
A goods line.
a goods line. And it's reasonable that people might come in and work at the factory and they come on the railway.
Yeah, there's only little holes.
Okay.
Like just this
So
thing.
are we saying the railway's all right?
Yeah.
Right, now you were going to say something. Somebody was.
Why didn't the railway go around and why didn't the car go through? Because most people take up cars, for instance. Well, if the road was through the middle of the mountain, it would be quicker to get to the opposite end.
I'm a bit of concern, not being a railway engineer, but we ought to check on whether a train can manage that incline.
Train can go
Now I know they go up into the mountains in India, but they could put like 5 engines on.
They've got
And I don't know how big a...
That's about 100 feet if you put that in scale, you know.
Be alright, would it? Be okay.
Trains
It's
can
reasonable.
get up hills. Trains can get up
yeah,
hills
but that's
easily.
not a hill, darling. That's a mountain.
Right, we don't live on a mountain. We live in a hill.
Well, what we'll have to work out is, you said you'd be responsible for the railway, so you'll have to find out if a train can get up a track that scale.
They can get up a if it's too much for the train, like it's like up like that. You can always have a tunnel going underneath and a road on top of the
Well,
tunnel.
this one doesn't at the moment have a tunnel.
Well, we can make a tunnel here.
So when you found out if it's reasonable and you find it's wrong, you'll make a tunnel and it'll go in a...
Tunnel, yeah.
Fine, that's okay. Right, you've got more to say.
Yeah, well, when it's coming down the hill, it'll be going very fast, and the bit down to the factory there, that'll be hard to turn.
Well, you'll probably have to work out whether in fact the engines are specially equipped
It is,
for
because
this
it's only
particular
goods
bit of
trains.
line.
Good trains go very slow. They're not very fast as express
No,
trains.
they're not as fast.
But aren't you saying that the natural inertia of the train will take it back?
Yeah.
Well, no. When you see goods trains,
Too heavy.
yeah, well, goods trains to get it past hostage. The goods train can go up and go slowly down the hill. Like there is signals and things like that to tell the train how fast
But
to
the
go.
weight will
Yeah, I know.
help it go faster.
I know, but in the country, in places like Sligo where the trains go, it's only a one-line rail. There's usually 2 lines, and that's only a one line.
And this is a one line.
But like,
rail.
how is any
Yeah, it
train
is now,
supposed
you
to
come
turn
to
on
know.
that, no matter how slow it's going?
No, it's meant
Yeah.
to be in.
Yes, you obviously the tracking don't. Oh, I see. Yes. Now that track seems to end in the middle of a road, which is a bit. Oh, I see. I see. Yes. You know, the man that built the Tay Bridge had a problem with engines. He built a track that the engine refused to get round. Now you'd have to have a track that the engine can get round. So when it's sorted, right. Okay, now are there any other matters of credibility we have to consider? You asked the question, is it reasonable that?
Dash there. How come your car's driving along this and you're bumping into tracks?
There's a bridge made there. That's now it's a level crossing. I'm making it a level crossing. It's made it over here.
We can't have all level crossings. There's a bridge.
Yeah, there's
Well, but we may find, you know, when we come to check it, you know.
Yeah, you can put it there because there's no roads. That is it.
Well, just a minute. Are we considering these two problems together? The fact there's a bridge there seems to go no place in a piece of road, and there's a road there that looks like it could use a bridge. Are we dealing with those two together?
That's our communication to the other house.
Yeah, we fall down the hill.
You mean a kind of farmer's bridge?
Yeah, but it's a bit big.
Well, you may have 300 head of cattle. I mean, it will. Is it reasonable?
Crossings for cattle and farms.
It does look big. I mean, when you look at that, that is as high as a mountain. Is going to make it more reasonable. Now, is yours a question about reasonableness?
Yes.
Right, ask it about
Where's the
reasonable.
bridge? What is that? A bridge goes under or over?
No, it's a level crossing. Just it's not. You don't get level crossings in the middle of the countryside.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Well, I know a level crossing that's in the middle of the countryside.
Not really many.
Well, I happen to know a village called Cross Hills that does have two.
Level crossings.
Yeah. They're an awful nuisance to life. I mean, it alters the way people think.
Yeah, I know.
You know, they really do think different as opposed to level crossings. Yeah, the bridge would be a lot
Yeah,
easier.
they don't have to stop. At the level crossing, they have the gate and they have to stop.
That's
and wait for
right,
the
that's
train.
right.
The
And they
trains aren't
know
very
that
often
when
in
they've
the
gone
country.
past one, there's another coming up. It doesn't matter which way they're going.
This factory's coming along
Well,
there, he'd stop there
listen,
and then have to stop there.
with two level crossings, it's probably going to breed a very interesting kind of motorist in the place. It's going to bring a lot of problems as well,
But there's
because the
only
two
one.
level crossings I know are
There's
always
only
getting
one.
hit.
There's only one. This goes underneath. The road goes underneath the train.
Well, there's no evidence that it does, but if you say so, I might believe you. Now, if that really is a cattle crossing, it's got to be reasonable for cattle feet. You hear this?
You can imagine being in the back of that factory and you're on your computer and the next thing you feel yourself flying down into the front of the building, up against the wall.
Because a train
The
ran in.
factory's going straight down like that.
Which factory are you
The blue one
referring
up there
to?
in the mountain.
Oh, yes. It does look a bit precarious. It not only looks precarious for a factory, it looks like Concord.
Yeah, I know, but how do you know it's a factory?
Well, I don't. I'm just agreeing with him. Just a minute. What is it? Well, let's decide what it reasonably could be.
A factory.
Now, put your hands down. One of the real skills of this sort of work is to be the size you need to be to walk in there and say, what goes on in here? And when you think you've got a picture in your mind, it could be a mining building and it's the entrance to go down. Yeah. What do you think? It does look a bit cramped. It depends on how far away things are. Were you deciding what that place is? What do you think? Maybe an industry for sheep farming. Do you mean an abattoir for killing the sheep?
Yeah.
A slaughterhouse?
No, just not functional.
And refining all the wool, the sheepskin. Did you say cotton? Yeah, the wool. The wool. Mm.
Well,
Oh, sheepskin refinery and a mutton producing factory. Nice.
it's only in Ireland you get small villages, very, very small villages with the odd one shop scattered here and there. Like in England, they're more advanced. Like this village is going to have some contacts, like the industry. They're going to have trucks coming with loads. So if there's trains coming, it's going to make it an awful lot easier on the people, because no matter what way you look at it, there's going to be more pollution with the trucks going in, and it's going to ruin the roads. Going around bends.
It seems to me either you have to choose to be advanced and have it or not advanced then from what you're saying.
Yeah, like it's better to have railway because it makes like if there's going to be a train, it's like no matter what way you look at it, if you have no railway, the town's going to be cut off.
Not a lot of people would stay in a place scattered with mountains. They wouldn't
No.
build their car parks on it. They wouldn't build their because it's
So
bad
you're
for the-
saying that because we've got the mountains, we've got to have factories and railways, otherwise people wouldn't stay.
No, it wouldn't be very much of a town anyway. Like not everyone has cars.
What were you going to say?
If they're all talking about the roads and the railways, nobody has thought about the paths. Nobody has anywhere to walk.
Hey, there is. I made a bit of path, yeah.
You're right. Yes. Well, are you saying that we need a lot of paths?
I might not be.
Would you like to be responsible for them or not? Some of them. There does seem a tendency for paths to be very straight, I must say. I know you're on the railways, but we're on about these paths.
Yeah, but you don't need paths. They won't use paths. They'll cross country.
They'll just walk up the hill. Yeah, well, yeah. And they'll make the path. All right. So what you're saying is, can you just leave the railway for a minute? Because we've spent a long time on that route. And we're going to have to live with it. Oh, I see. You moved the track.
Yeah.
Ah, you've created the tunnel. Yes, yes.
Here, have a big station here and trainers go. No, just a little house.
Don't put a station yet. We've not discussed it. Just put the track.
A little stopping for the train. People get off.
We're going to have to stop in 5 minutes, and it's ever so important we get this grove of trees in. Now, you say what you were going to say.
Weird scenes, you could use that place as a kind of a hotel because it's so mountainy. People could come on skiing holidays and you could have mountain climbing holidays.
Well, you've got 3 things it could be, and we'll have to work it out tomorrow. Or maybe you could work it out this afternoon. I don't know what lessons you have. Either it's an abattoir for killing mutton and dressing sheepskins, or it's the hotel for tourists,
Or it's a slaughterhouse.
or the slaughterhouse and the abattoir are the same. Or it's, there was a third thing, or it's a mine, the entrance to a mine. Now, we cannot discuss that anymore right now, but you're going to have to decide between the 3. Now, the last thing, I'm sorry about this, I'm hammering you on time. Where is it reasonable before you decide, listen to my words, because my words are saying more than words. Are you hearing? Let there be silence. Are you good at seeing behind words to meanings? Do you think?
Yeah.
Well, listen to the meaning. 4 trees belonging to a great forest, the only 4 that for some reason have never even wanted to be cut down. Nobody's ever said, in all that's been going on here, you'll have to get those trees out the road. Nobody's ever said, take them away. So they've stayed. Now, where is it reasonable for them to have stayed? Now, don't speak, place them. No. He'll place them and you watch, and you don't speak, and he's not going to speak. And then, when he's done it, we're going to look and say, could they have survived there and nobody ever said, get rid of them? Give them to him. Don't say anything. We're giving you a terrible responsibility. You don't need to make them stand up. They're not intended to, really. We're saying, for 1,000 years, nobody ever said, get rid of them. Because people are pretty good at saying, oh, get rid of that, pull it down, take it away.
Yeah, but they said there's the only tree in the forest. There's 4 trees left. 4 trees left. Yeah, well, that was built after the forest was knocked dead. Yeah, but there's still
they're
4
holding
trees
up the
left.
old ruins, so that they will all
years old.
So they don't.
Yeah, but it was only built for
Just a minute. You are saying to us, put them down, please, where he left them. You are saying men who built the castle understood to leave those trees. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that they just, well, when they built the castle there was all forest up there, and they found the space, so they built the castle there. And after a while, all the other trees got chopped down. They left those 4 there because they were holding up the castle, and they didn't want to
They didn't want to knock down another room.
They may have even been inside the castle wall. So if they cut the other forests down for sheep to graze, they didn't cut those down, you're saying, because they were in the castle grounds. Right. Are there other opinions?
Yes.
Right, hold on then. Put your hands down. How many of you, just put your hands down a minute. If you think in your mind you could find a more reasonable place to survive, do you think you could just write half a sheet to describe where they were if they're not in the castle? You see, if I said to myself, well, I reckon they could have survived round those crosses. I don't understand why those crosses are up on the top of the hill. Well, it may be a modern one or it may be an old one, I don't know. I might say, oh well, the reason I think the trees are there is this. I don't want essays, you realise, I want the shortest you could write that I could look at quick tomorrow. Could you do that? Oh, you've already done it really, haven't you? If you want to do it, you can. Now, how many of you think you can find a more reasonable place now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. That's 10 good, reasonable alternatives. Now, if I say you're going to do it and you say yes you are, I'm agreeing that that's a promise you're making. Is that right?
Yes.
You can't move the trees because we can't carry this today. What we're going to have to do is remember. For some reason, you see, 2 people look like they've been buried, separated out from all the others. Now, that's going to be interesting for a start. Why is it reasonable to use 2 peaks of hills, you know? That'll all have to be sorted out.
They're different people. Like this just found this bit of land, and then maybe over there found their bit of land.
Why can't they just use husband and wife?
Well, it must have been reasonable to put the coffins right up there, the graves right up there, because they wanted it to be hard to carry the coffin. People have done some amazing things with coffins.
Rich soil or something to preserve the bodies or something.
Well, then they must have a vested interest in keeping them and not letting them rot.
No, but there's deeper land.
Lemon juice,
Yeah,
as well as hills.
They'll be able to dig it better because down here it's very flat and there's stone, but up here there's...
Well, it depends. It depends. It depends. You may have good depth of soil, but you may have very poor depth. Yes.
Well, maybe they wanted to bury them on their own land. Like, they could have said that if I die, say, I want to be buried on my land, on their own property.
Yeah. So at one time, these 2 may have been quite important people who could say where they'd be buried.
Yeah.
Because usually you can't just say, can you? Can you just decide?
No, you can't.
I mean, if I wanted to be buried like in the River Tyne, I'll bet you, my husband, would have to find out if it was available. You know, they may not let you know. I don't know. There's rules get done, aren't there? Now, I'm sure I won't remember all this.
Why doesn't each person that's sitting around remember their little bit?
Right. Sit and remember a bit.
Can you have a double track like that?
Oh, as long as it's a bit of a problem unless it's siding. You can't have a double track going into a single unless it's a siding and the trains are very carefully a passing point. Can I just tell you then very briefly the story of your village, and then maybe, you know, you can get it reasonable for this. We are going to be people who look after people who come to the village because they want to see the old famous trees. So one of the things we're going to have to know about is how we're going to accommodate them all and how we're going to feed them all. Don't start answering now. And it's got to involve all the village. Now, I'm assuming you are the men of the village and that somewhere there's a load of women as well that live in the village that we haven't got yet, you know. Because it's not reasonable to have only men unless we're running a monastery. Now, would you rather run a monastery that has some sacred trees? It's just dawned on me.
No, I like sacred trees.
Pardon?
I like sacred trees.
Yeah, but do you want to run a monastery or a village? It's just dawned on me.
There might be treasure buried underneath the trees. Or
There could be anything. The point is we look after them and make sure the tourists can get at them. The problem is, either we are the men of the village and the women are not needed in the drama, or we're in a monastery and there aren't any women. Now, which do you think it should be?
Maybe you just have as a monastery. No monastery, not the monastery. The first one.
The first one. Just men and the women are not there yet. Right, okay. That's
or maybe the castle into a hotel.
a castle monastery,
Castle
yeah.
hotel, yeah. A castle
Or
hotel,
yes, that's right. Yes.
And
And for some reason, the women are not around when we make our talks
They
with
went
them.
on strike and then they went all on a holiday.
Oh, do you mean a hotel for only men?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because you lose half your revenue, because often the men won't come without the women. That's,
Doesn't matter.
well, it matters when it comes to count the money at the end of the year. Right, that's the first thing.
I love single men. There's no girls in our school, that's why.
Single men don't all want to come and look at old trees. Good heavens.
The women do.
Unless they're real
The women do
special.
want to come and look at the flowers and the trees.
The trees are prehistoric, yes.
Yeah, come on.
But does that make them more interesting to single men? No, I don't think so. I don't think that's reasonable. The number of single men I know who wouldn't move a yard to see an old tree.
Yeah, wouldn't blame you.
Unless, of course, they are
See,
students.
the wives are impressed to do it, you know, they're all seeing
But if they're single men, they haven't got wives.
tree. Yeah, that's where the love.
Yeah,
Just
I've
see that
got to
tree
see
there.
that tree there.
I've heard
They
someone
could be
about it.
students,
I
of
have to
course.
see now, that's the
They could be Arboretum students.
The wife be nagging, I want to see that tree.
But it's not. It's, yes. Listen.
A very strange story that the trees could come from the past and were transported there. That could be about time travel. They're so busy, they're investigating the tree to find out how it came from the past.
Yes.
To see.
If there were trees of no other kind like them anywhere in the world.
Trees.
So we don't know what made those grow there.
Brown
Yeah.
trees.
Are you saying single men would come to see trees like that more than families?
There was gold in the making.
You know, we're not inventing a TV movie, we're inventing a reasonable existence for people. Because in a drama, a good drama, it has to be reasonable. Let's leave it at that for you to ponder on. And can I thank you for working with me so far? Now, have you found anything else out about me? Because I've been finding out an awful lot about you. I don't think so, but thank you for the compliment. Oh, yes, I am. Pardon? I've been too much like a teacher lately. I shall get more like it then. The reason being that nothing happens in the world except what people find sensible to do. And then they think it's sensible when they do it. And then as they live with what they thought was sensible, they find it maybe wasn't so sensible, so they change it. Mr. Scargill and Mr. McGregor had a meeting last night because I think they probably thought it was a bit more sensible.
He came in with a plastic bag over his face and sprinted up the stairs.
Yeah, but it must have seemed reasonable to him to do it. We think it's ridiculous, but it must have seemed reasonable. Otherwise he wouldn't have done it, would he? Anyway, let's leave it there, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Very talkative lad on that side who actually got it.
No, that's right. It was
No, but there's another almost equally talkative lad
You
over
think
there.
he was, yes, I
It
think
seemed
he
to me that he was.
Yeah. Yeah. That
He had
boy
a lot to
understood
say.
implication, though.
He did. Yeah.
And normally I would teach the word, but I felt I didn't want to go into that in this first lesson with them, but I find it's a word I have to teach. Because once they know it, it alters very much how they foreshadow events and what they pay attention to, rather than decoration. See, we've got into a whole different area of thinking because they were using materials you provided than we would get into if they'd made their own.
That's true, yes.
Very different.
So what was your reason for that, if that's a fair question? I thought they might have enjoyed making their own. In fact, they were saying, it's the way they were drawn.
I know, yes.
And I was sort of saying,
I know, that's right, yes. Yes, there was a reason, because you never do anything without a reason. But my reason was that I wanted really to say to you, what gain would there have been for teachers in training to have prepared work for a class they'd never seen and then seen it worked on by children? So it wasn't that I wanted you to see your work worked on by children so much as, was there any use in that process that happened to you that you see might be valuable for a teacher in the beginning of their course? Because it seems to me you watch quite differently if it's, like you said, I was doing this because they were commenting on my work. To get the contrast would seem to me better to do it first this way and then see the difference if the children handle it all themselves. So having said that to myself, I was hoist on having to do it. But my instinct is not to do that. My instinct is to give the materials to the children and say, create me a, in this case it would be create me a landscape that could have a surviving grove of trees from the past. Now, whether I did a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know till I go and think about it carefully. But it seems to me that by saying to student teachers, what are you doing? And I would have tape recorded it. Will you listen to your talk at the beginning of cutting out? And now listen to your talk at the end. What has created the shifts? Because it seems to me that is a question about learning. Because as you listened to, as I was listening to the kinds of questions, and particularly seeing what you did with perspectives, for example, the question then can be asked, is that sort of perspective of relevance in your view to children? It doesn't matter whether people say yes or no, but I think it's important the question be asked. So that was where I was, you know.
You gave them responsibility for future work as individuals, even though I noticed in a few cases they work more or less in pairs.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Would you sometimes put a pair, make a pair responsible?
Oh yes. What I was more interested today was seeing, when I said, all right, would you see to that then? I was waiting to see whether people went, what? She asking us to do things out of school. I was really testing the ground for their attitude. Now you see, one boy came to me and said, 3 of us were thinking of the same modification, so it seemed more sensible for us to produce one piece of paper, which I find very reasonable. And I said, well, you can organise that between yourselves. And I think he was saying, so I'll be the one to do it. And the others were going along with it. I don't know. I think it would be asking a lot, not knowing them at all, to expect them to possibly meet at night and produce a piece of work as a triad, which is very hard to do. A lot of the things today, obviously, I was looking to see how they think. And in particular, foreshadowing this business of, if there's one in the group could teach the rest something, let's have it so. So I'm really laying down a lot for the future, because I don't see myself as the one who knows most. What I know I may be perhaps a little bit more sure of, but equally what I don't know I'm sure about too. But I am very interested in the children taking responsibility, as I believe the boys did over this tunnel. I think that was a piece of lovely initiative and responsibility that got quietly done.
Sorry, can I just go back to the idea that we would produce the stuff. Couldn't we have produced totally different stuff if we kind of had agreed on something to begin with, rather than everybody kind of cutting out little bits and pieces? Couldn't we have affected more? I'm not saying that this is good or bad.
No, that's right.
What the children did, like we could have said, we're going to create a village that's like a 16th century village somewhere in England, and we won't do roads like this, and we cut all little windy ones, and we put thatched cottages, and we put this and that and the other.
In other words, if I'd
didn't
narrowed the
organise
field
ourselves
for you,
at
that's
all.
right. Yes, no, you didn't. Well, it seemed to me that would be useful for you to see that you didn't. I mean, one could have taken all sorts of precautions with, I'm considering you as at the moment, if you were a student. One could have taken all kinds of precautions so that you got what I could call a homogeneous village, you know, and possibly more overtly relevant, you know. But I really am always interested in what people do. Remember the substance of we feeling. And what you did, it seemed to me, was share out the jobs, which is presumably what you do in college. You share out the jobs. I don't want to read more into it than that, you know, but I think, you know, you were task-orientated, you got down to it and you did it. And I heard a lot of who's doing that, you know, is anybody doing the trees? So you were obviously aware of the overall thing, but the consultation bit didn't happen.
I just think it's fascinating, but like, you know, you sort of say, well, we cut out ugly shops and ugly houses and ugly everything as we see around us, or will we cut out things as maybe they should be or could be?
Yes,
you know,
and it's a very,
think the world you create is, you know, it raises an awful thing.
It is also a big dilemma for the teacher, and a very good question to ask. Is it, and I have no answer, is it more productive for the students as they are, the children now done that, to actually have a village made up of mirrorings of what might be their experience? I'm not sure how much this is like their experience. Or, you know, what model do you want to offer as an alternative model? And are you into offering alternative models yet? Or are you more interested? I mean, that early discussion I had with them, to me, was fascinating.
I thought, I couldn't think we didn't put any aerials in any of the houses.
No, no.
For television.
No.
Because it was such a large picture.
The point is, whatever material one does prepare as a teacher foreshadows something of the goals one has. For example, if I wanted children seriously, say, to start looking at roofs in terms of designs and raking and so on, with a view to a science programme, say, on the sun, I might start with roofs in order to get foreshadowing the business of solar panels, so that one could be starting to look with these children about future possibilities in terms of energy. In an English school at the moment, because of the 6 months coal problem, I would have thought it would be very profitable and topical for a teacher to be looking at an examination, anyway, of the energies available currently and the pros and cons of them. Because there's enough, I mean, Greenpeace at the moment, just this morning on this morning's World Service, are going to somewhere in my own county, because they're predicting a new atomic power station at Druridge Bay, of all places. Well, of all places. Well, Sellafield was once of all places. And, you know, it'll take 10 years to develop. In the meantime, there's a farmer having to sell his land, 300 acres, for a something a lot of people don't want. And it would strike me that it could be a very good opener, that you look like you're dealing with a village, but in fact your solar panel bit leads you directly to where you're aiming for. And if we are going to be reps working on experimentations with solar panels, for example, as our context, it cries out for tapping into the heating systems that are available in any location. So these very small, apparent little things, if you'd planted, well, a war memorial would alter some of the possibilities if it were defined as a war memorial and not just a shape on a, you know, flat piece. This boy who's introduced sheep, he said to me, we're making some sheep because it's reasonable. Yes, I think reasonable is a very useful word. One of the quickest ways I find of helping children see cause and effect over a long time scale is the creation of a complex thing that forces you to have to deal with all the decisions that it carries within it. It says a lot for these Dublin children, whether they all spoke or not. I was charmed and delighted by the eye contact and the open response of the children, those that did speak, verbally. And I didn't see a big presence of subversive talk. Now, you'd see more than I, because you'd be able to see from the back. But I didn't see enough of it to worry me terribly. Well, that was my estimation, but you can never tell when you know. And I didn't want to disturb the children at the beginning, neither did I want to walk around them as if I was inspecting, because it would have immediately gone underground if there had been any. And a fair ability to share, not bad at all, really. Considering the nature of that exercise, it's a very big problem, socially, isn't it? One double bed sheet is not an easy size to cope with.
And given how large a factor would this be, the very fact that they were being watched by...
I think that would have some effect, I'm sure it would. At the same time, I didn't feel it was so much change.
Just wondering which particular direction, though, the effect would have been positive or negative?
I would think it would tend to be positive more than negative, really, in terms of suppressing behaviour. I don't really want behaviour suppressing because I would rather face it. Because there has to be an authentic behaviour between the teacher and the class, I think. And if it gets inauthentic, it's so hard. I mean, it's so sad when a class walks in with totally inauthentic behaviour. It takes such a lot of breaking down into honesty, doesn't it?
I just ask you about, in relation to that lesson, the triad of guilt thing you were talking about earlier this morning, and particularly the conflict between the material, the object interest, which presumably in this case was to end up with something that was going to be manageable, and that would actually, you know, lead somewhere.
Yes.
And then the child's need interest, which
yes,
could have been anything there.
Yes.
I mean, were you feeling much stress in relation to that?
Well, most of the time I was feeling shame that I was presenting them with this hideous roofing and so on. But at the same time I was feeling shame that I didn't like what you'd done. I mean, I was into that as well. Yes, I was quite happy at the level of letting them put it where they found it logical to be. That I was okay with. I was okay with, for example, I was fascinated by the boy who took the newspapers and became a prefect and started handing them all around. I mean, I felt I was learning something about how the class socially organises or is organised. You know, I mean, it's no good me judging whether he's a natural leader who does it, or whether that's the way things get done round here in this class, and while she's not doing it, I'll do it. It's no good me deciding I know how that teacher runs the class. I can only hear what she said to them, as, you know, what I inherit. I do have a certain amount of guilt about the object interest too, in that I know and face that if they'll have the grove of trees and find a truthful community, everything up there they can have But they don't know that yet because I can only say it. I can only prove it in action. That there is no curriculum they cannot have, but it has to be bedded in a sense of truthful community first. So I know that my object in pushing the trees is to actually give them the potential here, because drama doesn't teach in broad sweeps. Because it deals with the affairs of mankind, it has to unfasten the affairs of mankind and pay very close attention to them. Now, there are all sorts of strategies for dealing with that, some of which I'll mention tonight, and certainly through the week I will go into, because there are life-saving strategies for teachers that are not apparent this morning. They're not apparent that I'm using them. The only life-saving strategy that screams aloud is give the children a mediator between the ideas and you. And that's that. And you must do that in teaching all the time. And so I'm happy with that. That is a lifesaver for students. Because the children and you both work on the objects. And you negotiate through the objects. And most social events take place like that. When my husband meets the plane on Friday, he will say, "It was late again, love." Now that is an example of you mediate. I don't mean we can't face one another, but we have these jokes that are about planes, because he never ever finds that I arrive on time. Even if I've come from New Zealand, he'll invent it was 5 minutes late, you know, and I swear it wasn't, because that is one of the ways we mediate. And I think children are severely deprived of those mediation things that make social possibilities begin to be grown. And so I was happy with that. The discomfort lay basically in the quality of the images. And this is not to be disrespectful to you at all. Well, of course, I don't need to tell you. I don't need to tell you. I know that. At the same time, it did produce some very interesting... it produced a very good self-discipline for me, for example, you see, because we all bring our own notions, naturally. And these, as soon as you started cutting out straight roads, my heart sank. And I began to say, "Dorothy, why are you so upset by straight roads?" So, because it's a very good learning situation all the time. And, of course, when I realised I was upset by straight roads... Did you put the lines on them, by the way, or did the children? The children, I thought they had. I thought, well, these straight roads are going to create a sense of vastness that your small kink won't, you see. I read a most amazing thing. I don't know whether this makes sense to you at this point. And I don't know who's written it. It was in the matter of the new revolutions in industry. And he wrote, I think it was a man, that until the time of the Industrial Revolution, man cultivated the soil with his jowls hanging down. And when he had a tractor, for the first time, he was upright. And as a very, very keen gardener and vegetable and fruit grower, I know exactly what that means, because I grow everything with my jowls hanging down. And it was a statement of enormousness to me, one of those demarcations. Now, when you look at the new revolution, I look at the new telephones and the difference, and I'm sure these are the things that alter society. You dial, and it is no matter how hard you dial, it forces you to be patient because the dial has to go back. And there is an indirection about it. You try stabbing a phone, and how much of the modern jobs are done through light stabbing gesture. And they really make me fearful, because I think something happens to the person who does that all day. Now, I may be reading far more into it, but you see, I happen to think that because I was with this aggressive Marxist group last week, quite by chance, I mean, I'd gone to lecture, but found them in the middle of this meeting. They were out to change the world now by winning something, and I suddenly thought I'd come down in the train and watch some young children opening railway sandwiches and new toys they'd been given to amuse them on the long journey to Cardiff. I was on a Cardiff train. And every toy they had to be raped to be got at. And I thought, that's what changes the world in the long run. Tearing the wrapper off, throwing it down. They did the same with the railway sandwiches as they did with the toys. And when I was at the Poly, I looked at a sweet shop opposite, and the sweets were behind bars. I've never in my life, I saw some children going into a shop, and the lady who was selling the sweets was clicking iron bars out to reach a Mars bar and clicking it back in. And I felt these are the things that are making our society. So I'm forced as a teacher to say, what do I do in my classroom? Do I provide an antidote, or do I provide an agreeable acceptance and acquiescence of that situation? And what use is my small voice against tearing everything out to get it? And though I'm not unhopeful, it makes me alter how I think of teaching, you see. And I don't have any answers. But the reality is that the children I teach, if I'm teaching a class of 5-year-olds next week, as I will be, that is how they get their toys. And that is how their parents buy apples, in the main, wrapped up in cellophane, in Marks and Spencer. The children who come to my house reject the small apples, the misshapen ones, because that isn't how they see apples. They're all the same size. And here's me shoving my misshapen apples, you know, in front of children, saying these taste very nice, you know. And so here am I, in my ham-fisted way, trying to help teachers into that future. And I don't know how you feel, but I feel, you know, at my age, how do I keep up with it? Now, in my case, of course, I do have one gift, I think, and not me personally, that my subject is the affairs of mankind. And it offers me many alternatives to test. And in particular, and I think along with literature, history could do it, but often doesn't, particularly along with literature, it allows people to have conversations with many roles within themselves. Because in drama one is constantly inventing the possibilities of people, not the actuals. You know, everybody knows they're not really a tramp, but they are for the moment behaving as if they may be.
No matter which of those roles a teacher is playing, it seems to me that there is a fundamental requirement, and that is imagination.
Yes.
You know, all of them. I mean, listening to you this morning, it was, you know, your quickness to pick up what somebody had said and be able to think of a way of directing it, direction. And, you know, I say to students sometimes teaching maths, you know, try to make it a real-life situation, but they find it impossible to think, even of a
because there isn't a context. But you can actually, I was only using a basic rule there, and the basic rule I was using was go behind what they're saying to the implications of what becomes available because they're saying that. So all, my quickness was only based on applying one rule. It went through the implication channel and came out with possibilities, that's all. Now I reckon you can teach that. I can teach teachers, for example, I'm not boasting here, I can teach teachers how to create productive tension. Now the productive tension here was bits of paper could be argued about. That's all it was. Don't like those roads, this doesn't seem to be right. There's no tunnel. But because they could see it, they could argue about it. It was a communal thing for a communal aspect, you know, it was a social thing.
When you say create tension, you would equally, would you say, create a problem for the children?
Yes, but productive tension isn't quite that. Productive tension is, there's a gap that can only be closed through the processes we work on. So the productive tension here is, you know, are we satisfied that that we like this? That's the first one. It's very crude. The second one is becoming. Now, is that the most reasonable place for 4 trees to be preserved? He was extremely reasonable. I mean, I was really full of admiration for that. On the other hand, the boys who said, well, up in this cemetery, they wouldn't get moved either. I mean, that's just as good. But there's something there horrendously legal about it, that whoever built the castle enclosed the trees, and from then on they're not public. You know, oh, terrifyingly right, you know. It fitted in just about everything. But that is the crudest productive tension. Now, supposing, if you take a further stage, supposing I said, there's a government inspector coming up, or somebody from the common market, and I don't know what this rule book is, but they've got a rule book about accommodation and rooms and so on. So if we want to be able to have people stay, we'll have to agree to these rules, you know, and I don't know what they are. The productive tension would be there, meeting this person, trying to find out what the rules are that are being applied when he says, yes, that bedroom's all right, people can stay there. This bedroom I'm not so sure of. How big did you say it was? And having to submit to the scrutiny of somebody, and you can't quite close the gap to say, right, the statistics are it must be more than 7 feet square, it must have this, that and the other, and there must be no pictures of a certain kind on the walls, you know, and so on. It would still be productive tension, even if they knew the rules and had to make a model that conformed to the rules and then scrutinised by somebody. That would still be productive tension, because there's that little gap. They don't know ultimately what his response will be, or her response, you see.